Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the podcast. I am super excited to share this one with you because this guest, his name is Luke, is just an incredible human. He does some amazing work with breathwork. He's a breathwork coach and holds space for retreats to help people transform. I haven't been on one, but I've been following his journey for a couple of years now on Instagram, and this was an interview that a conversation I really wanted to have, and it just so happened that I was in Adelaide and he's from Adelaide, and we teed it up and it just worked perfectly. So we talk about a lot of things breathwork, a lot of things being in your heart center, and what that brings to the world, how to connect back to your heart center through all this distraction that we have in this world right now, and being authentic in your messaging and in how you live your life. Some of the key themes we discussed was the magic of holding a safe space for personal transformation, whether that's for yourself or for other people, the difference between fear-based and love-based offerings, why authenticity and presence are game changers on your journey, some insights into breath awareness and a simple breath technique that you can do. I think that's one of the big things I took away from this was that, I've been trained in breath work as well, and I facilitate sessions, and sometimes it gets too complicated. Just being aware of your breath is such a powerful takeaway from all of this, and there's a simple technique that he goes through that will help you shift from stress to calm, and I think keeping it simple is so powerful when it comes to any of these modalities and so much more. I'm really excited for you to tune into this one. It's an incredible conversation and I hope you enjoy it. Before we kick off, I always want to say thank you. Thank you wherever you are, whatever device you're watching or listening on. I want to say thank you. I'm so grateful that you're choosing to tune in to this conversation, this episode. If you're a long-time listener, amazing. Thank you so much. If you're brand new, this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here, and it means so much to me. I do this as part of my passion and my purpose, and having conversations like this and sharing this with people is amazing, but it's incredible to see how much you get out of it and the reach that we've been able to get on all the social media platforms, the people coming following, sharing the reels, writing in some DMs and saying how much they enjoyed the episodes means so much. And, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it means so much to me. If you subscribe wherever you're listening or watching, but also come and give a follow on social media so that you can follow the journey, but also keep updated with all these new and incredible episodes I've got coming up. I've got a heap in the bank right now, and, just for a little teaser, some psychologist, a human behavioral expert, Dr. John Diamartini, and a few other incredible guests that I'm just pumped to release. I wish I could release one every day, but I'm keeping it one a week. And also, I've got to keep the anticipation for you guys. So again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Luke, my brother that I've met twice.
That we remember.
Yeah. It was the sacred... Hang on, twice?
Twice? Oh, you're referring to now.
Am I tripping? We haven't taken anything. Just coffee. Oh, no. Today and the sacred party, yes. But I've been following you for a while, stalking.
Likewise.
In all the good ways. It's one of those connections where I don't know how long. Like, I don't even think Instagram shows you how long it is, but it's been years. I would say it's not 1 or 2 years, it would be longer. And it's really nice to finally sit down and have a chat. Like at the cacao party, it was like, brother, had a hug, and then it was like, I gotta go DJ. Were you serving?
No, I was
enjoying.
dancing.
Yeah, you were dancing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the time for that. But I happened to be in Adelaide this weekend, and I was like, there's one person I want to interview, and it's you.
Oh, bro.
So I'm grateful.
That was the word I was just thinking.
Yeah.
And the feeling I was just feeling. So, yeah, very grateful. And how beautiful. Yeah, it's been a few years following each other. And this is a beautiful thing about social media. Being able to connect in that way. But in a way as well, like realizing through social media as to What just happened? Yeah.
We can keep going. You're lit up.
Through social media, how you can almost you can feel someone's energy, like through a photo, through a video, through their voice, not necessarily having to be physical, or being in the physical together, but then the beauty of connecting in the physical, and it's a deep knowing that you can trust one another, that you can express whatever to one another, and perhaps that's within myself, not having judgments. So I'm not feeling judgment through you, but it's really nice to connect and to feel like we've known each other for infinite amount of time.
Yeah, and we went for coffee before, and we're like sharing a bit about our life and all that, and we're both just like, me too.
Yeah.
I can relate. I can feel that. So I don't dive too much into people's profiles and stuff because it's like well, one, there's not really much of someone's story, but the other side is like I want to be curious when I'm here. So before we get into your life story and all that, what is it that you do, and what do you think you're here to share with the world?
Beautiful questions. And I'm glad we're doing the interview now, not those few years ago, because I had no idea then. But yeah, I mean, I probably still have no idea, but a little bit clearer perhaps.
Yeah.
I very much feel I am here to shine my light, and to, as simple as that, to allow people to remove layers, to remember who they are. And, my understanding of who I am compared to who you feel you are, and there's so many different layers and depths to that. But I guess to help the remembering, to help that opening, and to allow other people to see or feel my light, so then they recognize that within themselves. So I very much feel that I'm here to do that. The tools that I am currently using for that is mainly the breath, and so many reasons as to why. But each time I keep going to go off in a different direction, it's I keep getting pulled back to guide people to their breath in whatever way that is. So you're very much to be able to help people learn the practice of breath work through breath awareness and light breathing, all the way through to dynamic practices like Wim Hof breathing and different practices. So very much that, and I could probably go on and on, but very simply, I feel that's what I'm here to do, at least right now.
Yeah. Where did it all start? Because were you always, the past 10, 15 years into breath work, or?
I was breathing.
Yeah.
Not consciously. But, I, 10, 15 years ago, wow, I was 10, 15, how long now? Okay. Yeah, let's go 15, 20 years ago. I thought I was going to play in the AFL. I was super fit. I was about to say super healthy, but interesting the perception that I have on health now compared to what I believed health to be back then. But yeah, it's super focused on playing AFL football, and had a few injuries that prevented me, not necessarily prevented me from reaching that level, but kind of created the roadblocks at that particular point. And almost in a way, I lost my identity at that point, because I was in this position now where I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, because that was the only thing, probably from the age of 5. If you asked me what I was going to do as a career, it was play AFL. Like, that was it. So yeah, I guess I at that point started to question who am I, what am I doing, but in different ways as to now, because I didn't have the awareness back then. No self-awareness, no practices to be able to increase that self-awareness or to be curious. So back then there was a lot of self-development that I was interested in, a lot of mindset type work and growth mindset. And there was also a lot of force. So there was a lot of a lot of situations where I needed things now and was so attached to needing that lifestyle. So whether it was needing a certain amount of money to feel sufficient, or relationships, and a lot of needing things externally rather than actually being content and happy with who I was. So through that journey led me to a lot of suffering. So there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of depression, and fairly constant, but there was waves of it, as I guess there always is. But yeah, I was suffering a lot. I was an addict at the age of 17 to gambling, being around sport all the time, and the constant chase of wanting more money. And then it became a cycle of numbing myself whenever I was stressed, or wanting to avoid the difficult feelings that I was feeling. That was my go-to. So these cycles were there for a very long time, and it sort of led me through the standard path of therapy, going to the doctor and being offered medication. I'm grateful that these options were there, but also I'm grateful for myself. I just had this deep sense that I don't want to follow that path. I did go through counseling, went through psychology, psychiatrists, all of these different forms of therapy, and it helped in ways at times. The big, I guess, catalyst or changing point that occurred was when I was with the psychologist, and we started talking about mindfulness practices, and she started actually trying to guide me through some mindful practices. And as I sat there, my eyes closed, I focus on this, or how does this sensation feel? I'm like, I can't do this. Like, just got up and left pretty much. And it sort of it got me onto the path of curiosity with these practices. But around that point, I discovered Wim Hof and sat down or laid down, whatever, and did the Wim Hof breathing. And it was kind of the first time that I remembered feeling rather than needing to think my way out of a situation. So, like, before that, it was always like trying to find ways to be calm, but like having to do it all myself and constantly in the thinking and doing. Whereas when I followed my breath, it took me into my body, it took me into the feeling, it took me into the subconscious, it took me into all of these places that I just had avoided for whatever reasons, perhaps not knowing how to get there, or how to feel it, or to be it, many different reasons. But it took me into that feeling, and I remember feeling so calm, like complete bliss. And it's like, all right, this feels great. And I didn't really need to think about how to do it. I just breathed. And so that was really the point that piqued the curiosity of, what is this? Like, what is this tool that allowed me to feel so calm? And how can I continue to experience and feel this? So that kind of, really was the catalyst once I felt it to follow that path.
Yeah. I had no idea you like the athletic side.
Yeah, wow. You can't tell. Yeah.
Not what? No.
I
didn't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, I was... I was about 15, 16, got into the SANFL system, so state level footy, and I think I first played, I only played a couple of games in SANFL footy back when I was like 18. Represented South Australia in the national championship, so I was well on the path, like I was in the system and on the path. And back then it was like, my days and structure looked like nothing but training. Like I loved it, absolutely loved it. Not necessarily loved running, but I knew the result of doing it and the feeling of doing it. So much running, so much gym work. And back then, interestingly, the ice baths, hated them, would do it, but in a completely different way to how I would practice cold exposure.
Just hips in.
Hips in.
Yeah.
tight, tense, everything. I just couldn't wait to get out. But yep, did it. Yeah, very interesting practice back then.
It's crazy because like it's so similar. Like I grew up in the soccer, represented Vic and SA, went overseas and played, and pretty much with recovery, same thing. It was you're in a bin full of ice, and you just I can do it. But I also noticed in that like that everyone else was freaking out, and I was like, if I don't look freaked out, so that I'd calm myself. I wanted to look like, oh, he's got this. So I'd do that. On the inside, I was obviously like, this is so cold. But I'd switch over to the mindset of like, I don't want them to see that. So I'd always sit there and be like, oh, you guys are soft. I could stay in here for 10 minutes, let alone that was 30 seconds. Would get out, get in the spa, and then back in. So now it's like, same thing. It's actually, now that I say that, I did the same thing at Cold and Conscious. I would get in and like try and keep the straightest face to try and just be like, I'm the facilitator. I've got to show that, I can do this. Whereas now I'd just be like, yeah, this is tough. But I can find that center point a lot quicker in those sorts of things. But it's interesting that it went from that, was it, you said counseling, psychology, that which led into the mindfulness, which led into this, which led into that. Did you ever imagine you'd be doing stuff like this? Like, did you have other jobs and try other careers?
I mean, probably wouldn't have seen it the way that it is. I had other jobs. I very much, I would say most of my adult life, knew that I didn't want to follow the normal way of doing things and wanted to do things for myself or... very much knew that I wanted to work for myself and create my own life and structure, let's say. I had other jobs, I've worked in factories, which I was there for maybe 2 or 3 days because it was so boring. Construction, same thing, bored. Different jobs, different pathways, lots of different businesses that I've tried to do myself, which, upon reflection, there's such beautiful lessons to be able to learn from them all. My first, I definitely wouldn't have shared this publicly. The first business that I started was with someone that was working for me when I was a sales manager at a company. And we discussed going into business and basically trying to make money. And so the business was called Trojan Wealth Group. I probably couldn't tell you what we were going to do, but we're basically just going to be trying to make money from people, and that was it. And as you could probably guess, it wasn't successful. I don't even know what we were trying to do, but just some of the ideas that have been there at times have been pretty strange. But it also highlights that I've been very curious and maybe not curious is the word for it, but very, I guess the words that come to mind now are adaptable, resilient. What would be the word for willing to give anything a go? That's kind of been my approach for most of my life, whether it's turned into a fruitful thing or not.
Enthusiastic and willing to try. Like, I think that's something that, when you've got that curiosity is a really good thing. Because it's never going to be the first thing you do. For me, it's like the 30th thing I did or am doing that's kind of, blended all those other things that were in the past that I learnt from to then hopefully learn and bring into the next things. Like, for example, run a kids' soccer academy on the weekend. I'd never thought I'd bring mindfulness into that. I never thought I'd bring my skills from other businesses that I've had, or my workshops of communication into doing something like that. It's just, you just think, oh, you're just kicking a ball. But it's like, there's other things I can bring into this. I can teach. I can share from that experience and from these lessons with these kids, which is ultimately the next generation. And now that I've got my own little son, it's like, okay, I get to have that awareness and show up in that way for him. I know you're a father as well. For you, like, did that change a lot for you, becoming a father?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the whole process, not only becoming a father, but the relationship with my daughter's mother, who I'm not with. That relationship and the relationship with my daughter has been huge huge within my journey. The lessons that I learn constantly from my daughter and kind of changing the view that, I'm not teaching her, I'm learning from her. My role is really to create and facilitate a space for her to grow and to blossom. And every day I get a lesson when I observe her and watch her, whether it's her, bending down and doing yoga and she's like showing me that that's what I should be doing in that moment, or often it's just to play and to get out of the structure. I might be trying to cram a little bit of admin in while she's off doing something on her own, and then she comes over and wants me to play, and it's just like, what am I doing? Like, do that at other times. Like, be present with her. So many lessons and blessings that that she shares. From the moment she was born, what an experience that was to be there and to witness that, and to truly witness the power of the feminine. And that was an experience. It's been a beautiful journey. And the other thing that I've really learned within this process is it's shown me that everything was about me before, and like now it's not. Now what I'm here doing and creating is for my daughter, and not only for her, but for her children and their children and their children. So it becomes generational. It becomes this understanding that, there's always work to do. There's always work we can do on self and the collective, and, increasing the frequency and, global consciousness, blah, blah, blah. But it reminds me now that it's getting out of this, what I'm going to achieve within my lifetime, and I'm just laying down the work that I can do for those generations, and wanting to create a world where my almost 4-year-old daughter, when she's 10, 20, 30 years of age, that she's learnt the values that are going to allow her to be resilient and to be free, and to be able to invest her energy in things that do light her up and that she loves. So it's kind of creating that, knowing that next generation has the ability to lay even more beautiful work down for their next generation. So it's been a great reminder that not everything has to be done in in a short amount of time. Like, I don't have to completely change the world to where we are all living, as one in harmony with the earth and all of this within my lifetime. Perhaps that will happen, perhaps it won't. But having a daughter has really shown me to zoom out, and it's reminded me that not everything is about me. It was before she was born.
And it's so interesting that you said that. You're like, your job is to create those spaces for her to grow and learn, and you're ultimately doing the same thing when you run and facilitate your retreats, your workshops. You're creating that space for people. Have you always been like someone that's like, I'm noticing that I'm the person that can hold this and create this space for people? Or is it just you've just naturally fallen into it? Because it's something that I noticed that not many people, there is a lot of people hosting events and stuff, but to be able to hold a space like that, breathwork, there's a lot of emotions that come up. There's a lot of people can go through a lot, and it can bring up a lot. To be someone that's willing to hold that space is a lot. And is something that's admirable, because as someone that has myself, it's your work I see has such genuine intention with it. I don't see you just putting stuff out there like, I'm just doing this and it's just because everyone else is doing it. It's trend. You're doing it because you believe in it and it's done something for you. Yeah, do you enjoy it?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I haven't always been intentional with it. I haven't always shown up the way that I currently show up, and that just because I perhaps currently show up doesn't mean I always will show up and hold space that way. So it is always coming back to, does this feel true, and is it authentic, or is it coming from lack? So the simplest way for me, is it fear-based or is it love-based? And if I am putting out offerings that are coming from needing to attract someone to pay my bills, I've been in that situation many a time. And once the dust settles and you reflect on that, it almost always doesn't get the result that person was after, because what I was attracting was fear-based, and it just wasn't the right dynamic. I guess back to where I feel what you were framing with it in what I hold. I'm very proud of the space that I hold, and I do love the work that I do, because I love seeing someone come into a space frazzled. Not necessarily love seeing them come in frazzled, but I love seeing the transformation in such a short period of time, to go from frazzled, not being able to look at me in the eye, not wanting to be close to me, wanting to be in their own space. They breathe. Perhaps they do the ice bath or whatever. We do whatever the activities are, and then all of a sudden, because they've connected with themselves, they're able to connect with everyone else there, and all of a sudden the weight is just gone. The stories are gone, and they're back to being present and calm. That's what I love. That's the space that I love creating. And I definitely haven't always been that way. I feel I've always been a leader, and I've always wanted to motivate and inspire people, and I've drawn a lot of inspiration and motivation from others. But I definitely haven't always been a heart-centered leader and space holder. I think where I've really learnt to hold a lot of space has been either, being in other people's spaces and observing and learning. But I think something that has been really helpful is being in the medicine spaces and seeing that everyone is in their own experience at all times. And sometimes when we're moving about, perhaps, what feels like a rhythm that everyone's a part of, it's very easy to get caught up in our own life, our own story, and not thinking about how you feel or what you're currently experiencing. But then when you enter a container like that, all of a sudden I feel the awareness is heightened that we're all on the similar path. We're all here collectively. But then in those spaces, you see someone going inward and completely silent. You see someone dancing and shaking some stuff off. You see someone else screaming. You see someone else, everyone's all living this human experience. And it's a reminder for me at those points that we're all experiencing life in our own unique way. And that's what makes this life so special, that we're all doing that and we're all being able to learn from one another. What I then learnt through that process was, often in those spaces I would ask myself, how can I be of service to someone? How can I help someone? And particularly when I might see someone crying or letting some form of emotion out. And it was this natural, how can I be there for them? How can I assist them? How can I support them? And I often got reminded that I didn't need to do anything. Just be there, be present, and just continue to cultivate love and acceptance within me, and hopefully they may feel that or they may see that. And it wasn't needing to necessarily give them a hug or tell them anything special, or it was just being there and being present. And I think from being in those types of spaces, it's allowed me to, it's shown me how I want to show up, and it's to be able to create a space where you can come in and you be you. And if I'm being me, that's the best way that I can show up. And it's just allowing someone to come in, say what they want to say, express themselves in whatever way they want to express themselves. And then that's how we create these spaces of transformation, I feel. And, it's so simple. Just be you. Programming and conditioning can, I feel, sometimes be viewed as like this negative thing, but it's really just a really handy way to move through life. And you ask me a question, I answer it, bang, we're flowing and away we go. That's, I feel, it's a program. It's like a computer. So the responses are perhaps what feels a little bit more, not necessarily scripted, because it's just coming out. But if you're not heart-led, then what are you being led by? Where is the information coming from? We just touched on, you're creating a space of transformation, or you're creating a space for people to be able to go really deep within themselves. So if you're not heart-led, then what is that space? It's kind of rings alarm bells for me then to, what are you allowing into the space? Whether it's energetically, spiritually, what are you allowing in? And then what is the intention of what you're doing? And, as simple as, like, if the intention is for you to receive things from creating those spaces, then it's not going to allow, I don't feel, the participant, attendee, to be able to receive, because you're taking. So me being, let's say me in this example, me being heart-led, doing this work, I'm going to almost change the answer here, which is perfect because it's what I'm about to say. But I feel the heart is, allowing, it's allowing messages. It's allowing clarity from spirit, from source, from, whatever we want to call it. So if we're attuned to that heart, if we're listening to what the heart is guiding us to do, therefore we are not the one creating the space and creating the transformation. We're just allowing ourselves to be the vessel to guide that space. So I think being able to tune in with the heart, and this has been, for me, probably one of the most important and powerful practices, to continue to come back to my heart, to continue to get out of my head. Because my head had me doing certain things, certain ways, it would continue in that way, that conditioning, that programming. So the heart allowed me to feel and see a new way, to experience a new way of being, of living. So being able to trust that as a facilitator, I feel allows the participants, the guests, the attendees to be able to receive what they are meant to receive in that particular setting. And then it becomes, which a beautiful friend of mine, Adam from Barefoot Yoga? No, beautiful man.
Here?
He's in Sri Lanka now.
Okay. Yeah.
He was up in Byram. He was from Melbourne originally. He'd be a great guest for you. For you. Anyway, I remember Adam saying to me at one point when we were collaborating on an event, and I think it was a Thursday, and we'd had maybe 4 people booked in to the workshop, and at that point I started having the thoughts, do we cancel? Do we postpone? What do I need to, what do we come up with as to why we need to cancel? Because, it's embarrassing saying, we need to cancel, only 4 people. And almost immediately at, starting this conversation with him, he reminded me, it's not about what you can get, it's about what you can give. Not about what you can get from facilitating the workshop, it's about what you can give. So it reminded me, I remembered that I'm doing this work, even if there's one person there, I can help them. I can offer them the guidance. I can provide that space. I can show them or provide them with the tools. It doesn't matter whether there's one person or 1,000 people. So it's really, really helpful to remind me of why I'm doing the work and to continue to come back to the heart and trust that to create that space for others, not for me.
It's a big one because even I was just talking about this with my friend before at lunch, and I was very consistent in the sessions that I was running weekly in Mildura last year, and there was some weeks, the meditations that I was doing, there was literally one person, and I'd be like, I would be getting down because I'm like, oh man, I expected the room to be full and all of this. But when I started and went into it, and then, I was tuning back into, what I was giving, it was like, but this one person, what can they receive from this? When we were doing Cold and Conscious down at the river, if there was less than 5, they would say, don't do it because the money ratio isn't kind of there. And I'm like, yeah, but those were the ones that ended up being where people shared so openly because there wasn't 30, 40 people. It was 3 of us and I got to share more, and it was very deep and very intimate. So it's almost like, again, it goes back to the intention. Like I love that it shifted that for you. What was it? It was not what you can get, it's what you can give.
Not what you can get, what you can give. Yeah, so a story on that I have is maybe 3-4 weeks ago, give or take. I'd started consistently showing up for online breath classes, which beforehand I hadn't. But I committed to myself to show up and to be there and to create these spaces, no matter how many people were there. And, it was an hour that I was giving each session. And anyway, there was this one session, it was like during the day. And, there was one woman that arrived to the online session.
Zoom.
Zoom. And, it provided a space for her that she would not have opened up if there was other people. She probably would have kept this is maybe some assumption and then also some information that she had shared with me that I'll keep private. But, she probably would have kept the video off. She opened that. We had a dialogue. We then got into the breath. I probably altered what I was going to deliver based upon what she was actually needing. But she also had been going through a pretty rough period. So it gave her the space to open up one-on-one, which she wouldn't have ever at that point booked a one-on-one session with me. So it gave her that opportunity to do so. It also gave her the opportunity to have that without all of the blockages around how to afford a one-on-one session or how to get the time for that and blah, blah, blah. So it provided, just by offering the space and showing up, no matter how many people were there, the opportunity for this woman to do that. And we've had many conversations since, and who knows where that's going to lead to for her. But beautiful that just by showing up and getting out of the ego, as to how many people need to be there. Crazy.
Yeah, I can totally relate because there's been times where even my seminars or events where it's not the numbers that I, had a expectation of, but they still were the most impactful events. Like it really does change when, and this is why I say the reflection of from me and like, having this chat and hearing that is like, that is from a heart centered space, like a heart intention where it's, yes, we still have run businesses and like, we have, this is the other thing. I had this block of like, I shouldn't be charging for these events if it's, I want to do it for the love of it. We also do this as a job, and there's a value exchange and energy exchange of those things, and people understand that. But when I was doing my full moon and new moon meditations on Instagram Live, sometimes there was very little people. One collaboration, we had nearly 10,000 people, which was just insane. But if I didn't do those, that one person that had this huge business profile, that she wouldn't have experienced it to then say, I tune in, I listen to those, can you do it for my community? I'm not saying it in the way of I was doing it to get those opportunities. It was a byproduct of me being super intentional and being like, I'm doing this because I enjoy doing it. And I think that's been my shift recently, is like, I'm doing it because I love doing it. Yes, if there's an event where there's like, $1,000 room fee and stuff like that, and there's 2 people booked in, it's kind of like, I'm going to adjust this. I might change it to one line so that we, not losing too much money here, but it just shows intention. And I think in any space, there's always going to be evolving people that don't have that intention, and maybe they don't, and then they will. Or maybe they did, and then now they don't. But it's that I get to choose for myself. And I know for the work that I do, and as you were just saying, like I feel like for you as well, is that's the intention that you want to bring with it.
So much. So much. Where to begin? Transformed me is an obvious thing that comes up for me. In all aspects, it's, where do you begin? What has breath done for me? It's helped me shift so many stories and layers. It's helped me, find a practice that improves my mindset and commitment. So I guess we could go through so many different things, from a physical standpoint, from an emotional, from a spiritual, and from mental, all of them. And the amount of times I check in consciously with my breath now, it's the anchor for me to come back to the present moment. So it's completely transformed my life. Perhaps it was always going to be, perhaps it was always the path, but it's really helped me slow down, not have to move at any particular pace, or allowed me to be me. My relationship with my breath is always changing, but it's a beautiful one. It's a great question, because it in a way it's like, it's my best friend that has helped me through so many challenging times. Reminded me that it's always there, even if I don't want to access it. That friend that's, hey, I'm here to help you. Do you need anything? Nah, I'm good. When, I'm not good and I'm really struggling. But then it's always there. So in a way, it's my best friend that's helped me through so many challenging times. And then helped me in the not so challenging times continue to expand, continue to grow, continue to feel, continue to be present. Beautiful thing, the breath is.
Mm.
Mm.
And it's not really something I've asked anyone that's come on that's been a facilitator of breathwork. Like, what is the difference between the styles of breath that you teach? Like, there's so many different. Would you say they're methods or styles? We see the popular ones. We see. I know for me in the circles that I'm in, it's like the breakthrough experience. So it's more. Is that holotropic styles or the really long experiential ones? Yeah, can you give us a preview of like ones that you use and that you think are really beneficial and how they affect an individual?
Sure.
But not yet.
In a couple of breaths.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I came across breath, as I mentioned, with Wim Hof breathing. So that was a breath practice. Let's say different practices or different techniques. You could use different words. The breakthrough experiences, I think very much from Johannes, and conscious connected breathing, and it's all different words for different styles of breathing. I guess, for me, the practices that I personally use, because this is a question that I do get asked, when do you do a certain practice and whatever? And, as I just touched on it, I'm kind of like doing it through this interview, but I'm like just observing my breath and noticing if it's, a little bit more inhale focused than exhale. And I know then that if I'm inhale focused, that I'm probably going to enter the sympathetic and I'm going to enter my fight or flight response. So it's being able to, all right, how do I match that? How do I just slow the exhale down and shift into a more parasympathetic state? So I'm calmer, more relaxed. So and that's where I think the best practice that you can have is awareness. It's breath awareness. So it's not even needing to learn any technique. It's literally just observing your breath, noticing, am I breathing through my nose? Am I breathing through my mouth? Is my inhale more dominant? Is my exhale more dominant? Where am I feeling the breath? All of these different things. So I use that breath like all the time, all through the day. And as I then kind of touched on, if I find that I'm a little bit more inhale focused or I'm breathing a little bit higher up, I'll bring the breath down and start doing some belly breathing, some diaphragmatic breathing, some longer exhales, as I touched on, to kind of shift more parasympathetic. So all of these practices can be utilized like all through the day. It doesn't need to be a set time to then practice. As for practice, and I guess the reason I focus on it as a practice is the commitment and the mental aspect of, right, I'm committing to this. And also kind of knowing that if I go away from breath practice, it's generally, if I do that for a few days, that's generally when I start to get stuck into the cycles and get stuck into a little bit more fear-based. So, all right, come back to practice. So for me, a routine looks like, as soon as I rise, I'm straight into breath. So often it's whilst I'm still in bed. Sometimes I'll get up and have some water first and then come back. But generally, straight into breath practice. And for me, it's a way of just setting the day up in a way that I am in control of how I'm showing up. And it's creating that inner state of whatever I'm kind of wanting to choose. Like, am I wanting to show up? Maybe I've got something super stressful coming up that day, so I'm all right. I'm going to focus on being calm and focusing on really creating a calm inner state, so then that is reflected externally. So for me, it looks like a bit of breath awareness as I rise, and kind of just focusing on my breath, noticing it. I'm then going into 3 or 4 rounds of Wim Hof breathing, and that's changing all the time as well, as to whether it's a fast, intense breath. Often I'm just breathing deeply and just feeling it, but I'm just allowing myself to flow through that. Once I've finished 3 to 4 rounds, I'm kind of laying there in pretty blissful state, and then that's where I'll kind of generally focus on more of the visualization, creating the inner state, and focusing on what's kind of going through that day. That's my morning practice. Often then I may come back to a different practice depending on what's kind of going on through the day, but at least I know that I've already done something that is going to help me from a physical stance, being able to essentially change the physiology, each and every cell, from doing that method. So I'm cleansing myself. I'm having a death and a rebirth every morning from the breath. And I'm able to flush out so much toxicity within my body, so many of the toxins. I think it's like 2/3 of the toxins we release through our breath. So if we can do that through a deep practice where we're flushing the system, how powerful. So knowing that, it's not necessarily why I go into it with the focus, but knowing it. Then being able to be present with whatever emotion is there is so beneficial for the emotional aspect of the practice. Spiritually, it's not all the time, but every now and then as I'm breathing, it's the remembering that I'm connecting through the breath to my soul, to my higher self, to spirit, to God, universe, whatever you want to call it. So it's this knowing that if we allow ourselves to be open to do so, that connection is then giving so much guidance, support, clarity. It's like, what a practice that you can do within 10, 15 minutes of your morning. Like, what? It's so powerful. So that's the practices that I go to. And then, there's so many others that I will kind of pick up depending on the state. As to what I guide, I love guiding Wim Hof breathing for those reasons and setting that up as a routine, but it's not the be all and end all. For me, as I said, breath awareness, light breathing to be able to, so many benefits. Like, our breath is like the breath heals everything. Like, everything. I mean, the science to back this up now in regards to, cancer, autoimmune conditions of diseases, mental disorders, like physical, like so many different things that it's helping people heal. Yeah, practice is powerful. So for me, it's being able to understand where you can use certain practices and not necessarily needing to go to an experience, but knowing that those spaces are there for you to be able to go and practice. And a group environment is very different to doing it on your own. But being able to know when to utilize a deeper, let's say a more holotropic style breath. And that for me is something that if I feel I'm in a bit of a, funk. If I feel that I'm in a bit of that out of alignment, like I'm just not feeling great, there's some things going on here, that's when I'll go to that type of breath and just really get out of my head. Just get out of it, reset. So it's knowing how to do that type of breath safely and you learn the fundamentals of it. That. Through what I've taught though is what I've seen is even teaching something like Wim Hof breathing. People come, they have this hugely transformative experience where they're, in the shares at the end. I'm super clear. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly where I need to put energy, focus, blah, blah, blah. How calm they feel, how light they feel, all of this. And then I see them a month or 2 months later, and nothing's changed because they haven't been able to integrate or to learn how to implement the practices into daily routine. Understandable. You've got all of these habits that have been built up and it's just the way we are, but we can change them. So when we learn how to incorporate all of these different practices into daily life and knowing how the breath can influence our state, whether that is shifting from a lethargic state into a more energetic, or whether it's shifting from a focused, hyper state into a more relaxed state. That's super powerful to be able to do very, very quickly. So for me, I love teaching not only Wim Hof, but breath awareness, being able to teach the light breathing, teach fundamental breathing, so that when we go into the more dynamic practices, we've got the basics right, and we're not doing more damage to our system, and breathing in an efficient way.
So, I know for me, facilitating breathwork, learning the fundamentals, the breath awareness, like you just said, is like something that's so. It's not the big experience. It's just being able to be aware of what's happening. And I think even just if the listeners now or those watching on YouTube, if you just kind of be aware, you can see what's happening and then make a change. Like if you're shallow and high up, it's of course you're going to then tense and a bit more anxious. But if you then go, okay, that's happening, switch it to a deep inhale. Is that right? Or a deeper exhale.
Oh, it's to simply relax.
Yeah.
I mean, you still want to breathe deeply all the time, but that can be confusing for people as to what that even means. So quite simply, it's just letting that long, slow exhale go.
Yeah. And I think that's... We complicate things. I think that there is so much out there, and there's someone's making a new technique every day and naming it something different, and that's great. And a new experience and all those things. But I think on a simplest form, like just being aware of it, because then you know what's happening. If you're unconscious, we are unconsciously breathing every day. And before I even knew what breathwork was, would I notice what my breath is doing? No, I just do it. And that's the beautiful thing about our body, is it's going to breathe for us. But just being aware. And I think that takes the pressure off. Because as you were saying just then, and your practice, I'm listening to that and I'm like, fuck that. Like, I love it, but I'm also, and don't get me wrong, I did a lot of the things for a long time that I've taken like a little break away from everything to just almost come back to the place of like, okay, I remember how powerful it was. Start implementing what feels good. And, I used to meditate 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. Did that for so long, and then I was like, don't want to do this anymore. I was like, okay, go back to just waking up and going straight on the laptop or doing those things. And then that was a circuit breaker to then be like, this is why I don't do this. This is why I don't sit there at night scrolling for hours. There's other things that we can do in that. Is there anything else that you do other than breath that you find helps you?
Oh, yeah. How long we got?
Not long.
Well, yeah, interestingly, I spoke about continuing to come back to the heart. And, there's certain practices there. Whether it has been connecting with cacao and having that as the mindful practice to really connect in, feel it through the body. And this can get confusing and whatever. But for me, being able to connect with that has been really helpful. Anything that's helping me connect with my heart. So cacao, breath, and then haven't for quite a while now, but been feeling the call, but also with rape. And being able to utilize that as a practice to almost instantly, I feel, drop away from the noise and just come into the heart and be guided by that in a very quick way. Yeah, I mean, those tools have been super helpful in, as I'm saying this, I'm like picturing just all of the noise on the surface, and then once you just allow yourself to come down, it's just quieter, still, and in that stillness is where perhaps all the magic lies, or perhaps the magic lies everywhere. But for me, the practices are then, breath awareness is super helpful. It's a powerful practice. It will significantly help people if they're constantly practicing, but also noticing for a lot of people that's really challenging to do, because you might be able to focus on your breath for 2 seconds and then all of a sudden you're thinking about what's for dinner, and that's part of the practice. But if you don't, if you're not trained and you're not practicing, then you'll very easily give up because you're not getting the result you're after. You're not getting the benefit. So that's where, for me, it doesn't necessarily need to be a dynamic. When I say dynamic, like, it doesn't need to be one of these more intense breath practices to get that experience. But those practices where you are just focusing on your breath, full circular breathing, and charging your body up, that allows you to drop out of that conscious thought and drop into that space. So that's where I feel, if you're struggling to be able to slow down the mind and you're struggling to get out of that overthinking mind, then that's where those types of practices are going to be really helpful to just kind of slow it down and get you out of it. And then perhaps that's where you're able to then start focusing on breath awareness and start utilizing that as a practice and tool.
I find that, for me, what helped recently, and I was sharing this when we went for coffee, was the sauna for me. Because there's nothing else I can really do in there apart from feel the discomfort. And most of the time in my apartment building, because it's like a communal space, most of the time there's not anyone else in there. When there is, I'm like, oh, here we go, because there's going to be a conversation I don't really want to have. I just try and close my eyes and like zone out. Like, don't talk to me, because there's lights. I turn the lights off because I want it to be dark, and then people come in, turn on the lights, they're laughing, giggling, and I'm like, you've ruined it for me. But in that, it's just removing the distractions and trying to just drop in. And like you said, stillness. Like, every guest I've had on since I've come back, brought the podcast back, is there's this clear message throughout of like stillness. Listen. Because that's where the answers are. And however you get there is your thing. Like, if you're getting there through breath, if you're getting there through, was it rape or harpe or both? Yeah.
Either or.
Cacao. These things that help you drop in. I've been doing them myself anyway. Drinking cacao. Geez, before I even met Dan, like I was buying the big blocks and shaving it and having it and not knowing that it was a medicine and was something to help me connect with my heart. But those little things that help you drop in are going to, I don't know, I think it helps guide you in a world that's so pulling you and pushing you in different ways.
There's a lot of noise. Yeah. And this is something I've noticed massively, the shift from being out in nature, being in a bell tent, and being in a house.
Hold that.
And being...
Because you were saying you were living in a bell tent.
Yeah. And it felt so different. It felt so different, not just the rise and, rising with the sun and hearing the birds and all these different things, like very, very, like from when I first went there to 6 months later, so much more connected with not only myself, but with nature. I was walking around at the start, looking everywhere for snakes, thinking that I was going to step on them by the end, or later in that point, I'm walking around like embracing, wanting to see them in a way to connect. But where were we? Back to the where were we? What was the question? Lost it like that.
I don't think it was a question.
Maybe it wasn't meant to be.
Little practices drop in. Nature, stillness.
Nature, bell tent, house. Noise. Phew, there we go. See, sometimes I even think when that comes up and the thoughts just dissolve, because often that would happen when I was smoking cannabis. Like, I'd be on these wild thoughts and then all of a sudden just gone. But then, when I wasn't smoking as well, and I'd have these like really profound thoughts, and then I'd go to say it and it just wasn't there. I was like, is there someone that just stole that because I was shining too much light? But yeah, there's a lot of noise, and whether it's the pressures of life, whatever, but to focus on it, like what I felt is the frequencies, the EMFs, and there's a lot of artificial EMF, and then there's natural EMF. But I feel that, and something I have learnt from someone was, if we are sleeping next to a power point, there's an electrical current, there's EMFs going through that, and our brain waves are matching these frequencies. So if we're constantly in that frequency, then we're not allowing ourselves to drop in. Whereas if we come out of that, and this is where, you go to nature, you go camping, you go sit by a fire, you go swim in the ocean, you go swimming in a river, you go hiking in the mountains, you feel different, right? Because we're allowing ourselves to drop in, but not necessarily needing to sit there and breathe or meditate, but we're allowing ourselves to flow with the natural frequency of the everything. Mm-hmm. So we're entering that flow state naturally. So we are dropping in. And this kind of leads me to I spent some time over in Italy. There's a spiritual community called Damanhur. And it was this organization, community that was that started back in, I think, the 70s. And the visionary of Damanhur was a guy named, I don't know his real name, but his name was Falco. And one of his strengths was being able to memorize or have the memory of all of his lives, like past lives, but also future. So similar to Matthias De Stefano, where you can remember past lives and use that information in the now. So what he did, he ended up getting a group of people, and they built these temples, and they're called temples of humankind, and they were hidden from society for years. They're incredible. Check them out, or perhaps, if there's a way you can show people these, they're incredible, and they're all hand dug. Kind of sidetracking. When I was in the village, this man appeared. It was super mystical, because there's no one around, like looking around, and then turn around, this man's just there. And anyway, he's invited. I was there with a friend, and he's invited us into his gallery. This is his home, and so we go in there, and there's incredible like sculptures, artwork everywhere, all around this building. And he's kind of touring us through, and luckily my friend, who is French, actually speaks Italian also, so she was able to keep the conversation going, because I had no idea what he's saying. And one of the questions I had for him at that point was, it wasn't how. I wanted to know how they were able to access a lot of the information. Like, was it, were they meditating? Were they utilizing plant medicines? What were they doing to access this information? Because there's like all of these light codes, there's all this information that they're receiving. And I remember, it was so simple in the end, but he was saying that they don't go anywhere. They don't need to enter anything. It's here and now. All of the information is here. All of the light codes, all of the information that we're looking to receive when we close down our eyes and we breathe, or we meditate, or we take ayahuasca, or whatever, all of that information that we are seeing visually or feel, it's all here now. So it's being able to be in a meditative state all the time. So right here, right now, being open to the information, being open to the resources that are here, and not necessarily needing to find a state to go in, but just being able to access it here and now.
I guess it's the more we remove the distractions and all these layers, the more we can, drop in and access those
Perhaps,
things. Yeah. Dude, there's such a rabbit hole we can go down with that, but we are wrapping up.
Just opened the hole at the end.
Everyone was like listening. They're like, "Oh yeah, interesting. I know Luke." And then they're like, "What?
What?
Yeah.
Damn it, her ayahuasca. What?"
I love that though.
Part 2 coming up.
Why do you do what you do? You don't I ask this to everyone because you don't have to. There's so many things that you can do externally, other jobs, other careers, all these things, but there's a reason you've chosen to hold this space for people to learn these modalities. Why do you do it?
think 2 answers for that. One, it almost feels at times that I'm not doing anything and I'm purely just following the guidance of what I feel I'm here to do. So it doesn't really feel like work or that I'm needing to do something. I feel like the times where it feels like I'm needing to do stuff is when I'm forcing things, or I'm experiencing challenges. So I'm experiencing not getting bookings or not having money come in or these types of things. And it's just, been a process of learning to observe and learn from those situations. All right, what do I need to amend or change or let go of? So I feel at times I'm not even doing anything. I'm just kind of flowing with my life. The second, I guess, answer or part to it is I do feel I have chosen what I am doing, whether that was in this lifetime or before, whatever. But yeah, I love it. Like, I love doing what I'm doing. So personally, I love the feeling of feeling all the human experiences, emotions, and being in these spaces. Like, I feel like if I imagine how I want to live, and a lot of what I'm doing is kind of wanting to create this style of the way that I'm wanting to live with others. And what would that look like? All right, it's being in nature, it's sitting by a fire, playing music, then being able to have spaces for people to drop in and to be able to have space held for them on the regular. So not needing to create an event for this, but this is just the way we live. If you want to come and speak to me, I'm here for you. If I need that, I know you're here for me. So it's creating those spaces. And I feel that the work that I'm doing is moving towards this way of living for not only myself but for others. And a big lesson of that has been to live that way myself before expecting others to do it or whatever. So I guess I feel I'm doing this work for what I feel is for the greater good of humanity. It's helping us live happier, healthier lives, to quote Wim. To just be able to find more meaning in things and not need to live a life that just feels live a healthier, happier, more fulfilled life, quite simply.
Yeah, I love it. If you had one thing you could post on your social media that was the last thing you could ever write, for whatever reason you couldn't again, there was one last message, what would you share?
First thing that came to me was you are enough. You are enough. Part of me then felt people would see that and wouldn't land, wouldn't have meaning. So I feel it's live each moment fully. Whatever that is, if it's some grief or sadness, live it, feel it, learn. If it's pure joy and love, live that, feel it. Yeah, live each moment fully. Experience life.
Powerful, brother. It's been an amazing conversation. There's still so many in my head. I'm like, we could go in so many different places, but we do have to finish at some point.
Perhaps.
You're like, I got nowhere to be. You're like, I actually do, but I'm so grateful, man. It's been so nice. When I reached out to you, I was like, man, I hope I can, make the use of my time while I'm here and stuff like that. And when you were like, yes, and then we organised it, I was like, man, I'm really looking forward to this. One, to just meet you. Secondly, it's like, I love sharing this podcast because I said before, I love the curiosity. I love being able to ask questions, and I love knowing why people do what they do. And to hear that from you, to hear how it's changed your life, and then you've chosen, hey, it's impacted me, but now I want to share that with others. I think that's a beautiful gift that if we do that, and whether that's for a paid retreat workshop, or it's just you sharing your experiences online or to someone in a conversation or on this podcast, it's making an impact. And I feel that that's that ripple effect that keeps, going out into the world. And at the end of the day, every little thing makes an impact. And I'm really grateful for the conversation, but I'm also I'm proud of you for making that impact. I admire the impact that you're making and you're choosing to make, despite everything you've mentioned and despite the moments where it feels like this, like that, whatever. You're still choosing to show up for yourself, but also your family, and then on top of that, other people. And I think that's just it's a beautiful thing that I get to witness and I get to do as well. And it's really making an impact. And yeah, so thank you for being you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you for seeing yourself in me also.
What you see in me is also within you.
So yeah, super, super grateful to connect with you, to be able to have these conversations, and I feel there'll be many more to come.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be able to also connect with your listeners, your community. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do so. Look forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's always, because this is like, again, first time having this conversation, but it's, each time this is another thing that I was saying to a friend today. I'm like, because she asked, how do you choose your guests? And I'm like, there has to be some sort of feeling from me. You could look at someone's followers and blah, blah, blah. It's like, if it's my podcast, it's done from a heart-centered place. And it's like, I have to genuinely feel this person has a message to share, and not just a story. Everyone has a story, but is doing something that I feel can impact the planet if I share it more. So, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for people to hear this one. If anything has inspired you and stood out for you, or maybe you learnt something, please reach out, share, comment, all those beautiful things. Where can people find you, and what have you got coming up that they should know about?
Oh, lots. Yeah, lots. I would say, I'm mainly hanging out on Instagram. So it's mainly where I'm responding and connecting with people. So Luke McLean with a couple of underscores there. And then, you can check out the offerings mainly through my website. But to be fully honest, my admin is not where I put a lot of my focus right now. So often the offerings don't really get there. So if you connect with me through Instagram, I'll direct you on the right path. What I've got upcoming, pretty exciting things. Not knowing exactly when this will land and people will be listening, but, kind of going out a little bit more into the future than winter retreats in 2025. So, Wim Hof style, but focusing on breath work, cold exposure, a lot of mindfulness activities. July 2025 in Blue Mountains and also in Tasmania. So those are super exciting. They're 4-day retreats, so quite immersive, and really looking forward to getting into those. Online, I've got a couple of different things. So I've always got the lives, the classes that are ongoing. So for anyone that wants to drop in to a breath class and particularly learn more about how to breathe in a more effective and efficient manner, there's either classes or courses for that. And then other upcoming things. So depending when this comes out, late November, I'm in Geelong and Melbourne. So that'll be cool. So I've got a charity event on, I don't know the date, but late November. I think it's the 24th, something like that. And then the weekend after that, I'm up in Mullum. So a little bit of things before the end of the year, but I didn't book too much because I was meant to be in Europe. Changed plans, so maybe edit that out. Don't know why I went there. But no, don't edit anything. Yeah, so always got, the Wim Hof method, which is kind of rolling into more of my brand and the centered branding. Always got offerings in Adelaide, generally once a month, and then across in sort of Melbourne every 2 or 3 months, in-person things. But yeah, very much looking forward to building the online community that I'm building through the centered platform and through those courses. And yeah, looking forward to connect with people all over the world.
Awesome. Well, all the links will be in the show notes and stuff like that. So if you want to find out more, just honestly, Luke will be tagged in everything. So go across to the Conscious Podcast if you're not already, and follow there. Like I release, there'll be a bunch of clips from this podcast which you can share around, but also click onto his profile and see all the things. And hopefully when Luke puts them up, I can then share them as well, so that you can, maybe drop in. I'm actually intrigued.
Yeah,
I want to drop in. The winter ones scare me, but I'm also like,
what scares you?
I don't know. Probably because I've watched like Wim Hof stuff where he's like, just barefoot, just shorts on and in the snow and yeah. But again, it's that like, you know what? I'm one of those people that's like, I'm willing to try things. It might not be this time, like tomorrow, but it might be, in winter. So
the seed has been planted.
Yeah. Ask me again in 6 months' time. We'll see where I'm at. But yeah, thank you so much. It was such a powerful conversation. And to everyone that was listening, thank you so much. And until next time, peace.